Hey y'all, Jenovi here. Back in August, I did a panel for Uplink, which is a Long Island retro gaming event. And I ended up covering 3 different segments, 32X, Atari Jaguar, and the Virtual Boy. And this video is for the Virtual Boy. So check it out. I think you're going to enjoy the discussion. And this is the final segment slash panel that you're going to be getting. The next video after this will be a standard upload. I'm working on that now, so enjoy.
So we're on to the Virtual Boy. And this is, again, I'm going to keep this really short because there's not a whole lot to say on the Virtual Boy. But it was created by Gunpei Yokoi. He also created the Game Boy. And it was actually released unfinished. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They worked on it for 4 years, and Sega said, or Nintendo said, either we need to just can it or put it out. We got too much money into it. Let's put it out because we need to move all of our resources to the N64. So they put it out, but it wasn't finished, and it wasn't anything that he envisioned. He didn't want to put it out. It was kind of put out against his wishes. That's my understanding. And one of the other interesting things is that Nintendo got in bed with Blockbuster on the deal because they felt like they were having a difficult time marketing the system. So they made this deal with Blockbuster where you can go in and rent the system in 3 games for $9.99, and you also get a $10 coupon where you can buy the system from Blockbuster and get your rental price back off the hardware. So I think those systems are going for like $159. So it'd bring it down to $149. So your rental price, if you thought you were going to like the system, you could try it out and it wouldn't be wasted because it would go towards the purchase of the hardware. And unfortunately, they projected that in North America it would sell 1.5 million, and in Japan it would sell 3. And in reality, once they started testing the market after it launched, it only sold 140,000 in Japan. And I don't have the numbers for you in North America, but it was very dismal. So dismal, in fact, that the president of Nintendo said, despite the lack of unique titles, we still thought it could be sold. I want to return to the starting point and find titles that emphasize the difference that Virtual Boy games can provide. I want to start afresh in 1996. So what they decided to do was actually pull the system from store shelves. I guess they're still on store shelves, but they weren't providing anything else. And they started developing games. And in fact, if you actually look up the Virtual Boy and when it was canceled, it was say like 1995 in North America and like January of 96 in Japan. But they actually had a massive booth showcasing the Virtual Boy at E3 in 1996. And 2 of the games that they had finished and ready to ship was Dragon Hopper and Bound High. And the idea was that they would market their Virtual Boy at that point. They were able to get the cost of the system down to a sub $100 price point, and these games would all be budget titles sold for $29.95 or less. Both of these games actually were submitted to the ESRB. They both received ratings. There was hands-on experience with both of these games. Bound High has been leaked, the full game. It's incredible. Dragon Hopper is known to exist, but it's in private collectors' hands. And it was thought that these would be game changers for the Virtual Boy, and for whatever reason, I'm assuming because of the struggling market with the N64, Nintendo never re-released a Virtual Boy like they were anticipating. They had a big marketing campaign. They bought ads in magazines. Like I said, they talked about it at E3 and Space World. They had games ready to go, and nothing. And that's kind of where the Virtual Boy ends. It's kind of an interesting deal. It's so much potential, and Nintendo just decided not to move forward with it for whatever reason.
So I was a weirdo, and one Christmas I was told we can get a new video game console. That was between the Saturn, the PlayStation, and the Virtual Boy. And my stupid ass chose the Virtual Boy. I don't know why. I do know why. Because I would go to KB Toys, and they had a Virtual Boy set up there where you could play Mario Tennis, and they had a pamphlet. And every time I would go to KB Toys, I would take one of the pamphlets. My mom would be like, "You already have one of these," and I'd be like, "I need another because I need to get this system." I love the Virtual Boy, and once again, like the Sega 32X, the Virtual Boy, really half the library are good games. Vertical Force, Red Alarm, Tellero Boxer, Mario Tennis, Mario Clash, Wario. Like there's 7 games, and there wasn't many games. It was 13 games on the system, so like. It's crazy. I think the main problem with the Virtual Boy was the fact that it wasn't virtual. There was like Tellero Boxer was the one game where it was like had any sort of semblance of virtual reality when you would get knocked out and the screen would crack.
it was like the old viewfinders, and they marketed it as a virtual reality machine, and it wasn't really. And it's interesting that that technology would later get picked up and used in the 3DS. So
Yeah.
but I find it another interesting thing about the Virtual Boy is that Nintendo, for whatever reason, they were desperately afraid to send out development kits for it, and they wanted to gatekeep it, and that's why there's so few games developed for that hardware. Is because Nintendo refused to send out development kits. They thought that people would actually just create crap on there, and that the system would be misunderstood, and that all the first generation games needed to be oversighted by Nintendo themselves to make sure that the games that the system was intended to play were actually putting out on the hardware. And that's why you ended up with this really small library, and they were going to wreck that with the second generation games, and it just never happened. But what I think is really beautiful about the Virtual Boy is that you don't need the headset, and you have these consoleized versions coming out. And for me, I can't do the headset. It's I've seen somebody over here talking about how it's murder on your eyes. It's murder on my eyes. I struggle with that stuff. But
I would play it for hours. Hours. I would play it. I didn't care. Burn my retinas.
You're the man. Yeah. So these consoleized Virtual Boy systems are just, they're great. There's a friend of mine. He has a channel called Retro Game Players. He actually showcases one of these consoleized Virtual Boy systems, and you can look up Candy's Classic Game Room, our Game Shrine.
I think it's Shrine.
She's a friend of mine.
It's Shrine.
Yeah, and she covers a lot of Virtual Boy stuff too, and she just does a phenomenal job. And you can criticize some of the decisions behind it. I personally think that Nintendo should have actually, gone through with the relaunch and supported it, because they had some incredible games on the horizon for it.
Yeah,
they're paid for. What do they have to lose? When you think about like putting out a game on like the Saturn or the 32X or on a Nintendo system in your third party, they typically have like these order minimum requirements, and you have to ask yourself, is there going to be enough people to actually purchase these games to where I'm not going to lose my butt on them? But when you're Nintendo, you own the platform. You print as many as you want to print and see if you can actually reboot the deal. There's nothing to lose beyond the money you've already invested developing these games, which are completely done.
And a game like Bound High was arguably one of the better virtual reality experiences, because it had more depth perception where you were bouncing off the stuff, and like that's what they should have focused on more so than just a deeper 3D. Even though depth perception is kind of like that, but make it more in your face instead of out of your face. Like, I don't know. And then you had Emco with baseball and golf. I had the baseball game as a kid.
Oh,
like,
sorry.
That was. I remember. Here's how bad it was. I even convinced, like, it was so like stupid. My cousin ended up getting one for like her birthday too, and like we both had Virtual Boys, and I remember my uncle bought Tellero Boxer, and I was like, oh my god, I need this game. It's so cool.
Yeah, Bound High. I actually I did a video talking about these unreleased Virtual Boy games a while back, and I got playing Bound High, and it's like 4 hours later, I'm thinking, okay, hold on, I need to turn this off. This is freaking addicting. This game is so good. I can't believe this game was never released. This is criminal. And I've seen that Warren was saying that porting Virtual Boy games to the 3DS was a missed opportunity. It certainly was. And a game like Bound High, Nintendo owns the game. Put it on the 3D. I mean, the 3DS is almost dead at this point, right? Or maybe it is dead. But I mean, put it on the 3DS. You're going to sell so many copies. The game is so good. It held up so well. I mean, it's a classic that nobody's gotten to play.
And even if they sold one copy, like that's still, it's not like it's going to take you really much to port it over. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird that they never. And a game like Mario Tennis, Mario Clash, Wario Land, like they're all landlocked onto that system. Like all those games are. So it's like unless you have a Virtual Boy or play it via an emulator or something, you can't experience the game. It's a shame. It's really a huge.
It's a real shame that we can't all experience Waterworld, right? I mean, I know it's the game you're going to go and play when we get done here, Sean.
I've been thinking of just go ahead and getting a complete North American Virtual Boy set, but Waterworld just costs too much for me. Well, I don't know, because I also bought the Amazing Spider-Man on the 32X, and that was the most I've ever spent on an individual video game. But now have you seen how much that game is going for on the 32X?
Wild, isn't it?
Dude, I bought it for $300 with a box, no manual, but the box was really crispy, and it was like one of the last games I needed. I bought it at Too Many Games. I want to say it was 2017. I was just like, all right, whatever. And then I looked it up on eBay the other day just for the hell of it, and I'm like, people are asking $1,000 for this game? Like, wow, this is... Oh, yeah, Jack Bros, too. Jack Bros.
Oh, yeah. You know, I don't know. I wasn't really a Jack Bros fan. I think it's... maybe I just need to give it another shot. I think it has like a timer system on it, and that's kind of...
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but yeah, you talk about Spider-Man on 32X. Holy heck. If you go to eBay, search by sold, and then search by auctions, they're going like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 for copies that aren't even that nice.
It's crazy. It's craziness. That's why I'm glad I bought it when I bought it. Like, even though it was like stabbing a knife into my side, dropping $300 on a video game that sucks for all intents and purposes. At least, you know,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But, you know, I would rather spend $300 on like a great game or something like that. But yeah, crazy to see how much that's going for.
What other really expensive games have you bought or do you own?
I really don't have. God, I hope there's no anti-eBayer people in the chat. I had someone send me Panzer Dragoon Saga to my P.O. box back when I had a P.O. box. And I was just like a complete minty fresh. And I was like, what the hell? Like, people thought that I sent that to myself and just did it for views. It's this guy I've actually met him 2 or 3 different times. I met him at Long Island Retro, and I met him at Retro World Expo. An older Asian gentleman named Milton. And Milton just had a Sega Saturn and a bunch of games in his closet that he wasn't playing, and he didn't really care to sell them or anything like that. So he sent me that game, and I'm just like, holy shit. So every time I see him at a convention, like, I give him a hug, and I'm like, come over to my table. Here's a free shirt. Here's some free stuff. Please take this stuff. Like, I owe you so much.
Yeah, I'm kind of a similar personality. I had probably about $1,000 worth of PAL region Super Nintendo games I sent over to my friend Stika. I don't want to ask for money on this. I mean, so if you set up a table and sell, that's good. But if you got good friends or people that you really appreciate and you send something out, it's I don't know. It's just kind of different. People get all upset about that type of stuff, and they just they think that they know how everybody feels or how everybody's mind works, and
right.
They just don't. It's just the reality of the situation. So, but that's awesome, man. Yeah, I own that game as well. It's I'm ashamed to say I've never actually played it.
Really? It's still honestly holds up. It honestly holds up still. Like,
for so long. I owned it for like a decade, and it just sits there on the shelf.
It's good. It's a great game. Not worth the price that it's asking. I don't think any game is worth that sort of price, but definitely a great game.
Is that thing pretty spendy now?
Panzer Dragoon Saga? Oh yeah, that's like $1,000.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I always thought the two most expensive games I owned on the Saturn was Tempo and Stellar Assault. Two fantastic games, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You guys are free to ask it if you have any questions, and we'll get them answered.
Okay, get him out of here. Get him out of here.
Yeah, good old Yahel. I will say that the CDI had incredibly crisp video quality, and I think it was perfect machine for a game like Thunder in Paradise.
Holy hell!
I'm so sure Thunder.
Sorry, I was looking at Jack Bros. Jack Bros is over $500 now on the Virtual Boy.
Oh man,
yeah, we're not going for a complete Virtual Boy collection anytime soon.
Freddie says he has a CDI and he has missed for it. You know, I am very tempted to do a CDI-based video. It's a really interesting system. I think probably the most interesting thing about the CDI is that Philips, there's around like 200 games for it, and I think Philips actually paid for the full development of 190 of those games or something like that. Like almost the whole library. They actually published and developed the whole entire library. It's just wild. So they bought licensing rights, and then isn't that crazy?
I've never played CDI. So one system.
Oh my goodness!
Never played it.
Do you ever make it out to the Portland Game Expo?
I haven't been before, but maybe when things get back to normal, I'll check one out. Because I mean, I would love. I would love to play a CDI. It's just
what I typically do is I get Wrestling with Gaming to bring his CDI, and then we typically have a party up in like a penthouse or something playing
nice.
CDI. Because with CDI, you can take the gun and play Tetris with it. Hey, do you know any other version of Tetris you can play with a gun? It's freaking fantastic. It's so classic. What's your favorite version of Primal Rage on the console? I actually own all the versions of Primal Rage, but I haven't played them all, so I'm probably not the person to ask. What about you, Sean?
I don't like Primal Rage. Like it's funny because of the moves and stuff, like the farts and the peeing and stuff. But it's just as a game, it's weird because I love dinosaurs. I haven't played all of the versions either. So I wouldn't be good to say. I would rent the Genesis version back in the day, but
yeah, same here. I mean, it's good on the 32X if you like the game. You know, you know what happened for me is like when that came out, I was playing on the Genesis, and then you get Virtual Fighter on the 32X,
right?
And I remember like before that, my brother had Street Fighter 2, and we played in his room, and I had Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 in my room, and then Virtual Fighter came out, and it was like, whew, it's hard to justify playing anything but this. This is like
exactly
so incredible, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, that was just the reality of the situation. What's your impression of the Zelda games they made? We've got a CDI conversation going on here. I don't have a high opinion of them. I think there's actually some really good games on the CDI, and it's unfortunate that the focus is always on the ones that have more name recognition because they're kind of the junk on the system. And the reality is you know, at least 10 good games, right? Yahel? At least 10.
They got the Robert Mapplethorpe game. Is that his name? Like,
what's this game we're talking about?
What's the Robert Mapplethorpe game on the CDI? The Flowers of Robert Mapplethorpe. Classic.
Oh, these guys are freaking great. Gex, man.
Well, Gex was.
Were you a Gex fan?
I played it on the 3DO. I played the 3DO version.
Oh, 3DO.
That's right. It was okay. Way too many one-liners that were repeated all over, like over and over and over again. It was like, But I think gameplay-wise, it's not bad. Gex has been kind of getting a resurgence lately, though. Like for some reason, a lot of people are talking about Gex.
Do you think there are warehouses of old Jag stock? Telegames has. They're actually still in business. They don't really do anything. They refuse to do any interviews. Or it's a really weird situation. They have a warehouse in England, and they have one over in Texas. They reported back in the late 90s or early 2000s that a tornado had hit their warehouse and most of their stock was destroyed. But they still sell new old stock Jag games. As far as hardware goes, it's doubtful. I think that all the hardware got sold off to, I can't remember what the company is off the top of my head, Solar or something like that. And who knows what happened to it after that.
Dentists.
Favorite FMV game? My favorite FMV game is Road Avenger. Easy.
Quarterback attack. Attack. I love that game, and I don't know why. I don't have any nostalgia for it. The first time I ever played it was as an adult, and I was like, "This game kicks ass. I love it." Quarterback attack. Awesome. It's great.
That's freaking awesome. So I'm very curious. On that video that you were on with me, I talked about wrestling games on the 32X. And how did you feel about that comment?
I mean, it's fine because Raw sucks. WrestleMania the arcade game is decent, but the thing of it is 16-bit wrestling games as a whole were trash. Like, I love them as a kid. I would sit there and play Royal Rumble on the Genesis, and I would just leave it on the character select screen and listen to like the theme songs for like hours and hours because it was all you had. But
me too. That's awesome.
I mean, the only good retro wrestling game that wasn't something like a Fire Pro or something, in my opinion, as far as something that's actually worth playing, is WrestleFest. So I'm actually converting a Final Fight arcade 1-up cabinet into a WrestleFest cabinet. Very soon, actually. I have all the parts for it. I have a friend who's doing it because I'm an idiot with technology. And then I have all the graphics coming in as well. I'm very excited for this. It'll be...
Yeah, you're going to do a video on this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. He wants to know, he says, F&B is coming back in the indie scene. How do you feel about that?
You know, there's actually been some, who's the company? Wales Interactive, I think, is the company that's been doing a lot of FMV games lately, or at least bringing them out onto consoles like The Late Shift and The Bunker. Was a pretty good game. I like it. You know, they're not trying to sell you the games for $60. You know, they're usually $10 or $15. So I think for that sort of price point, like, you're getting a fun experience. And obviously the video quality is leagues better than it used to be. So I like it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, for me, I think where FMV really works well is adventure style games like Tex Murphy. So I'm always excited to see those kind of coming back in. And I remember getting my Sega CD, and we had Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't hold up well, but back then it was incredible, you know. And if you can do a modern take on that, to where you have all these video interactions, and it's kind of a similar format but modernized, so there's not all these load times, and
the
menus aren't such a mess. There's really an incredible idea under it all. So. I'm very excited to see this stuff coming back up and seeing what people are going to do with it with modern tools. G says he thought the WWF arcade, the arcade game, plays better on the Genesis than the 32X.
I believe the Genesis version is 60 frames and the 32X is 30, isn't it?
I don't know, but I don't know if I can let G talk down about the 32X here in this chat. I might have to ban you.
The sprites are better. Sprites are better on the 32X, but I'm pretty sure that on the Genesis it was 60 frames, and on the 32X it was 30 frames. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yes. The frame rate was 30 frames on the 32X, 60 frames in the other version. So that would be why.
That's
interesting. Strangely enough, the 32X version was the only version that was 30 frames. Even the craptacular Super Nintendo version that cut out 2 characters because I couldn't fit them onto the cart, or it was just a lazy port, that was still 60 frames. I don't get it.
I always feel like I'm kind of like in the minority, because I feel like the 30 versus 60 frames is never really... It doesn't really bug me in gameplay, but I always hear people talking about it quite a bit. For you, is that something that you really notice when you're playing a game?
Sometimes. I think it depends on the game. I'm actually playing a game called Rogue Company right now, which is like a 4-on-4. It's in early beta on the Switch, and it's 60 frames. And I think it sort of depends almost like on how big of a screen I'm playing on, because when I'm playing it in handheld mode, that 60 frames feels very, very smooth and fluid. But I'm also not someone who's like, if a game is 30 frames per second, I'm not going to play this. Like, I don't care as long as it's consistent. Consistency is way
we grew up with Star Fox, we're using 4 frames per second, 30 frames. That was an upgrade.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it can be noticeable, especially depending on the genre of the game, but it doesn't necessarily detract from an experience for me or anything, unless it's a situation where I've played a version that has a higher frame rate and then playing another version of the game. I think that's a bit more noticeable.
Well, Sean, I probably should wrap this up. I have, as you know, I'm at work right now. I actually just took time off to do this. I really appreciate everybody showing up, hanging out in the chat, listening to Sean and I talk. I appreciate you hanging out with me, Sean. It means the world to me.
No problem.
I thank you to Long Island Retro Gaming Expo for giving us a slot to discuss these things that we're passionate about. I think it's an excellent deal that they're doing here. It's quite uplifting to have something like this going on when so many people are kind of locked away and can't really do anything beyond work and sit around in the house, right? It's an unfortunate situation. So, but that's it for us. That's you can find me at Jenovi on YouTube. You can find Sean RGT85 on YouTube or on Twitter, and look us up. Say hi.
So what did you think? Did you enjoy the video? Did you have any questions? Did you have any input? What did you think about the Virtual Boy? Did you have any experience with it growing up? Let me know in the comments. I always like hearing from y'all. And it might be a few weeks before you see the next video on this channel. I'm going to try to hustle and get something done, though. I've been working on 2 different scripts. I think they're pretty good. I think you're really going to enjoy what I have cooking. It's just a matter of getting enough time to actually pull everything together as I want, so it's at the quality and level that you all expect from this channel. So until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.